Hello and welcome to a new edition of Business Insider. Held under the patronage and attendance of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the Egypt Petroleum Show, Egypt's 2023, sits at the heart of the African and Mediterranean oil, gas and energy conversation. This was a platform with power to convene global industry leaders, an important enabler of engagement from government and policy level to industry leaders and influencers and engineers providing technical enrichment. Egypt drives the conversation that addresses sustainable, climate-conscious production of oil and gas and the growing commitment to energy transition and a net zero emission future. We'll be talking about Egypt's 2023 in this edition of Business Insider. The show that was inaugurated on the 12th of this month with the attendance of His Excellency the President, and that concluded its works earlier this Wednesday. But first, as usual, a look at our main stories and the news headlines making the economic segment for this past week. Minister of Electricity, Dr. Mohammed Shaker, met with the Greek ambassador in Cairo, Nicholas Papageorgiou, to discuss methods of boosting joint cooperation in the field of renewable energy and follow up on the latest updates regarding the electricity interconnection project between Egypt and Greece. Shaker praised the efforts exerted to complete the necessary procedures for the electricity interconnection project with Greece, which is considered an important gateway for linking Egypt and Europe through Greece and Cyprus. For his part, the Greek ambassador to Egypt said that the implementation of the interconnection project enhances the partnership between Cairo and Athens, in addition to achieving advantages for them. And Minister of Agriculture and Land Reclamation, Said El Ghazzawy, held a session of talks with the Chinese ambassador in Cairo, Liao Liqiang, to discuss ways of boosting joint cooperation between the two countries in the agricultural sector. The top officials voiced their country's aspiration to increase the exchange of agricultural commodities, as well as strengthening cooperation frameworks in developing high productivity varieties that are tolerant of salinity. Both also probed ways to overcome current obstacles in order to increase trade flow between Egypt and China. Moreover, El Ghazzawy and Liqiang agreed to establish a joint agricultural technical committee to follow up on the implementation of the agreed upon points during the meeting. And the government is continuing to implement presidential directives and mandates to maximize efforts to govern the state's financial system with the aim of improving the efficiency of public spending and ensuring optimal utilization of state resources, Finance Minister Dr. Mohammed Maït stated today. He explained that the application of e-tax and customs systems enabled the government to achieve integration between the Egyptian Tax Authority, the ETA, and the Customs Authority in a way that enhances the governance of exports and imports. Maït also noted that financiers who did not enroll in the e-invoice system will be prevented from dealing with the Customs Authority as of April 1st, whether in import or export, and they will not be allowed to obtain the Advanced Cargo Information Declaration (ACID). Well, those were our top stories for this past week. A short break, and When we come back, we'll be introducing you to our distinguished guests here in the studio and watch a report about Egypt's 2023 and start our discussion. Please stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. With us now here in the studio is Engineer Hussein El Ghazzawy, energy and industry expert. And Engineer El Ghazzawy was a co-chair of the jury in the Equality in Energy Conference in Egypt's 2023, and he also moderated a panel, a symposium in the Sustainability in Energy Conference at Egypt's 2023. A very good evening to you, Engineer Ghazzawy. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mr. Mohammed, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir, for being with us here. Allow us, please, and allow us, dear viewers, to watch first a report by our own Abir Hussein and Rasha Abdel Hamid about Egypt's 2023, and come back with Engineer El Ghazzawy and start our discussion.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi inaugurated the 6th Egypt Petroleum Show and Conference, Egypt's 2023, held at the Cairo International Conference Center under the theme North Africa and the Mediterranean, supporting sustainable global energy supply and demand. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli attended Egypt's inauguration alongside Minister of Petroleum Tariq El-Mullah and a number of ministers and top state officials. CEOs of oil and natural gas sectors worldwide are taking part in the event alongside a cluster of energy ministers, government representatives, senior EU officials, secretaries of major international energy organizations and energy business tycoons. The event began with a short documentary film on the unprecedented fluctuations the world has witnessed in 2022 and how securing energy resources became an exigency. The film highlighted that Egypt had managed to realize swift development over past years, thus becoming a regional energy hub under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. The film referred to Egypt's efforts in upgrading the infrastructure and launching major development projects, in addition to hosting the 27th United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP27. It also pointed out that Egypt had announced its petroleum sector strategy during COP27's Decarbonization Day. The film further stressed that Egypt's 2023 represents a great opportunity to stand on means of overcoming major international economic challenges in light of the current geopolitical conditions, inflation and stagnation challenges, and development of current generation of working systems of the energy, natural gas and petroleum sectors. After the documentary film, President of the DMG Events, who is the organizer of Egypt's 2023, Christopher Hudson, delivered a speech in which he underlined that the exhibition is meant to showcase Egypt's potentials as a strategic partner in the energy domain, thus becoming a major energy hub. He noted that there are over 500 exhibitors in the event and 30,000 visitors from 70 countries are expected to attend in order to participate in the dialogue and build partnerships at the local, regional and international levels. Meanwhile, Secretary General of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, Haytham Al-Ghais, underlined the great attention Egypt gives to the energy, oil and gas industries. He said the organization has clinched a deal with Petroleum Minister El-Mullah in Cairo to be implemented by 2059. He made clear that pumping investments in the energy domain is necessary for achieving stability in the market, calling for rallying all efforts to secure energy to all. For his part, the Minister of Petroleum delivered a speech in which he commended President Sisi's sponsorship of the event, which is important in this timing as the world is facing major energy challenges. The minister further said that Egypt had capitalized on all its potentials to confront the energy crisis. Al-Mullah added that the petroleum sector had achieved many successes last year, citing the increase of petroleum exports to $18.2 billion and achieving a surplus in the petroleum balance of trade for the third consecutive year, amounting to $3 billion. Minister El-Mullah also said that an ambitious plan was drafted with international partners to dig more than 300 exploratory wells, explaining that as part of Egypt's role as an energy hub, the petroleum sector had succeeded over the past 8 years in developing infrastructure through increasing the number of ports and platforms to achieve 79 depots for crude oil and petroleum products storage. He underlined that as part of the Decent Life initiative, natural gas was supplied to more than 200 villages, while the petroleum sector had managed to maintain the annual rate of natural gas delivery to households at 2.2 million housing units. The petroleum minister said the number of cars converted to operate on natural gas was increased to about 500,000 cars, as well as the number of gas stations that was doubled to reach about 900 stations.
Welcome back, dear viewers. Nearly 40,000 visitors at the Egypt International Exhibition Center, the EIEC. 2,000 plus delegates, 260 plus speakers, 65 plus conferences, and 2 awards ceremonies. And we're back here with Engineer Hussein El Ghazzawy, the energy and industry expert, who moderated one of the conferences there and was a co-chair in the jury in one of the awards. First of all, Engineer Ghazzawy, how do you see Egypt's 2023, the 6th edition of the show, compared to the prior 5?
I witnessed the first edition. I was actually in the executive committee working on the first 2 editions, and I'm very pleased and actually honored to see the progress took place with Egypt. It turns it to not just a local event. It became a real international event. It proved it's an international event, and I think the support of the leadership of the country to patronage the event, give it a lot of visibility, and attending all the event as well. It's in his very busy schedule. And you can see now, actually, if you watch the news, international news in the last few days, you see people are transmitting direct from Egypt, having the discussion with executive, policy maker, ministers. It is a true international event. And for me, this is an industry. The conference, having this conference with this size in Egypt, it's very important. We have major success with the COP27 in November, so we are on the right track when it comes to all this major event. Go back to Egypt. Egypt actually, as of next year edition, is going to change from Egypt Petroleum Show to Egypt Energy Show, and it will take place same from 12th to 14th of February 2024. The facility in the Cairo El Manara basically conference and exhibition facility. It's an outstanding facility. Year on year, I can see more company, more country pavilions. The diversity of the event. We had this finance and investment conference, sustainability in energy conference, equality in engineering conference, in addition to the technical conference, which was very, very rich, because people still want to hear about the development and the research and development, in addition, obviously, to the strategic conference, where you have all the major decision maker coming to the country. And we have seen, actually, as the report said, that with the petroleum sector, $18.4 billion last year. That's a major success. With the
and a number of agreements were also and MOUs and deals were made in this
MOUs
show.
In further exploration in Egypt, MOUs for the decarbonization. That's why the show is moving from just petroleum to energy, because there is a lot to talk about the energy transition, decarbonization. And we saw also a good number of MOUs on training. I think the capacity building, what Egypt have done in the petroleum sector or in the last few years, in enhancing the competence of the people through training with multinational companies is very commendable. And for us in Egypt, I think we have seen with what happened in the crisis last year with the Ukraine-Russia crisis, we see that Egypt is playing a very important role in partially supplying Europe and the rest of the world with the gas, because we have two things. We have the gas and we have the infrastructure. Egypt is the only country in the North Africa and East Mediterranean with the LNG facility, so we have the gas coming to us from nearby country, even places like Cyprus. They're talking about having the pipeline from their gas field to Egypt, and we do with our existing facility here in Damietta and Edco, we export to Europe. The agreement which was signed in the summer between Egypt, Israel, and the European community, basically the collaboration to supply more gas to Europe. We have in Egypt demonstrated we are the energy hub of the East Mediterranean and North Africa. And I think with the COP27 and the plan for the COP28, which will take place in UAE end of the year, there is a lot to happening. I think if we talk about the COP27, there is we move just from talking to action. So we'll see a lot of actions happening, and with obviously the Egypts, it's all we're keeping the momentum as far as the energy transition concerned.
Perfect. Engineer Ghazzawy, the strategic conference, now this was was a dialogue about, again, the road to energy transition and the net zero emission future, the region's growth and sustainable energy future. Could you tell us what did the strategic conference reach at the end in Egypt's 2020?
There were various dialogue, various panel with the decision maker and executive ministers, CEO from international company. They talk about energy security is very important, energy sustainability, and there are too many challenges. We go through an era where the energy security is very important. They also spoke about Africa, and Africa, we still have issues in Africa when it comes to electricity. We still have almost 580 million people in Africa. They lack electricity. So the investment in the energy sector in Africa, and how can the gas play an important role in the energy transition in places like Africa. They spoke also about the funding of the infrastructure with various African bank and international financial institute, as well with all the EMP.
I guess in Africa, where the sun is is rich, if I can say so, there must have been talk about the solar energy and other renewable
definitely
means.
The renewable is, and I think we came Egypt is doing fantastic on that domain. And if I talk about, if you allow me to talk about the renewable and the green hydrogen, the last report from the European Investment Bank, which was issued in last December, Africa is qualified to produce 50 million tons of green hydrogen. And guess what? 20 million will come only from Egypt, about the rest, Morocco, Mauritania, Namibia, South Africa. So you are absolutely right. Solar, wind, hydropower, Africa is very rich when it comes to the renewable energy. And what Egypt has done, and with the East Mediterranean Gas Forum, which definitely helped a lot in the last few years in the gas market and the collaboration between various countries, with our current position, and I think His Excellency the President, with his clear direction that Egypt has to be an energy hub. Yes, we are the energy hub, and I think we are also on the track to move to be the hub for the green hydrogen, renewable energy, with Egypt talking about this green corridor, which will go from all the way to Europe. In your intro, you spoke about
the Egypt-Greece interconnection project,
and if
electricity interconnection project.
For those listen to His Excellency the President a few days ago when he was in UAE, he said Egypt is ready. We are ready to export electricity. We have made the right investment throughout all this year. We have the surplus electricity, which is essential for our industrial growth, and now Egypt is ready to export
to Europe through Greece and Cyprus.
Cyprus. We are connecting with Saudi. Agreement was signed in October 2021 to reach to Saudi. We have already connection with Sudan, Jordan, and Libya. So it is.
The technical conference, Engineer Ghazzawy, shaped by the engineers, of course. How did you see the technical conference, especially regarding any technological uses of, to develop the energy?
For me,
yes, I mean industry.
For me, the success of any conference that you have to have a rich technical conference, and Egypt demonstrated through various panels, various technical discussion, the richness of its content, and that's why as of next year is not going, because there was a lot of discussion this year about the decarbonization, energy transition, renewable green hydrogen, and so on. So that's why the name is changing to have more than just petroleum or oil and gas technology. And there is a lot of R&D is taking place, a lot of innovation in the industry. So there's too many challenges.
The finance and investment in energy conference must have been very important, because I mean finance is a key arm. Finance and investment is a key component of any industry. So can you tell us what have we reached?
Of course, if we are talking about, we spoke about Africa, just a number. Africa needs an infrastructure for the energy in general. We talk about $100 billion per year. That's per year. That's a significance. We are gifted in Egypt because we are ahead of many countries when it comes to our existing energy infrastructure. So back to your question, you need a lot of investment. You need a lot of investment. We can talk about zero emission objectives, but you need to finance to reach this zero emission objectives. Sure, I mean, it's we saw what happened when there was a shortage of gas in Europe. Many European countries went to use coal to produce electricity, which was not good news for the objective to reach CO2. If you look at us in Egypt, we have reached all over 13.5 million households having the natural gas connected to now, with 1.2 million addition every year. And if we take an average 5 per household, we talk about 65 to 70 million Egyptians have access now to the natural gas. The changing of all this vehicle to natural gas, which is still have some emission, but much less emission compared to the oil. Yes. So with all that, you need finance. You need to have the buy-in of all the finance institute. You need to have a good visibility study to look at the investment, because at the end of the day, these guys, they need a return on their investment. So it was a lot of actually healthy and fruitful discussion throughout.
The 2,000 delegates plus, 2,000 plus delegates must have come from all over the world, from international, multinational companies, from regional companies, from Egyptian companies, right? So many businessmen were there, not just officials or but a lot of businessmen were there in the conference. Now, you co-chaired, Engineer Ghazzawy, the Equality in Energy Conference Award as part of the jury. So could you tell us about that award, and who did it go to, and why, and what was the criteria in choosing the winners?
Actually, we have different categories, and actually year on year it becomes very difficult for us to pick up the right winner. And for me, this year it's really fantastic. Each year the improvement in the caliber, and they are actually all females, because so it's,
the equality in energy conference, right?
So it was really actually motivated to see this talented, high caliber Egyptian and North African and East Mediterranean ladies participating in the Equality in Energy Award. And me and the rest of the jury was extremely difficult for us to pick up the winner and the runner-up. And for me, they were all.
So it was not a unanimous decision?
No, it was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Well, and we wish to.
You have a lot of winners.
They are all winners. I think all those shortlisted for us, they were winners. And it makes us feel comfortable that we will have a bright future in this country, because with our youth, whether it's female or male, we'll have a good future, because they are competent, they are confident, they are knowledgeable.
Great to hear.
They are fantastic.
Great to hear. You also, Engineer Ghazzawy, moderated a symposium in the Sustainability in Energy conference. Tell us about that specific conference.
So it was the panel. It was advancing the safety culture in the industry, and that's very important. We need to. The energy industry is safety and environment is very important in that industry, because you're dealing with many stakeholders. You deal in a very challenging environment. So we had representative I had 4 panelists. They were fantastic, various companies, and we spoke about the role, how we can advance the safety culture in the industry. It will all come to the leadership has to, and especially with the challenge after the pandemic. You had the workforces, they were quiet for a couple of years now. We see that activity is increasing, so to bring this workforces back to business and teach them, coach them. We call them in our industry green hats, which is the guys less than 1 year's experience. So that definitely was a challenge, as we say, that building the trust between you and your team allows the team, empowers the team, because in our industry you need to empower your team to stop the operation. And the actually valid example were mentioned in the discussion, when they feel something it will harm them or harm their people. So actually we had 45 minutes of a very fruitful discussion. I enjoyed the panel on the professional and personal level myself, and I learned a lot, and I hope the audience also had a good takeaways from our discussion.
Finally, Engineer Ghazzawy, because we only have a couple of minutes left or so. So next year is going to be the energy show, not the petroleum show. This must be an anniversary for you guys working in this industry. Every February, and of course November was a big anniversary, the COP27. So what is it that you want to see next year? I mean, 2024, come next February.
I want to see more on the energy transition, because it's very, very important. I think the objectives to reach zero carbon emission, it's needed, but we need to have the tools, we need to have the technology to do that. So energy transition is going to be
faster than what we are.
Yes.
Than the pace we are working at.
And
now.
Technology need to improve, because if we talk about the green hydrogen, it's still costly, it needs, for example, green hydrogen. To produce 1 kilogram of green hydrogen, you need 9 kilograms or 9 liters of fresh water. So the technology needs to evolve to allow.
And it will.
I'm sure. If we look at the solar panel prices 10 years ago and look at it now, so definitely energy transition is important. We see a lot of renewable projects in Egypt, and I think the diversification of the energy mix is very important to all the countries. I think Egypt, when it comes to Egypt, we are very diverse: solar, wind, and the nuclear. Nuclear is, when you have all the safety measures, it is a clean source of energy. So energy transition, the mix of energy is definitely, I would like to see more of that during the next Egypt's 2024, inshallah.
All right, inshallah. And on that note, dear viewers, unfortunately, we've come to the end of this episode of Business Insider, where we covered Egypt's 2023. On behalf of you, we thank very much Engineer Hussein El Ghazzawy, the energy and industry expert, co-chairing a jury there at Egypt's 2023, and also moderating a symposium there, and one of the men of the energy and industry here in Egypt. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you, Engineer Ghazzawy, and thank you, dear viewers, for watching us. Next week, same time, a new episode of Business Insider. Until then, have all the best and goodbye.